Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Malice in the Mitten. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Khristine Mulligan. Hey, Khristine.
Hey, Trace. Hey, everybody. It's been a week, yo. I haven't even really touched base with you. I know this is the weird thing. I know what you have planned for our show from now, but I have no clue what we're talking about today. What are we talking about today?
Well, today is a story, and it's something that I just want to say, like, if you guys or anybody out there who has a neighbor that all of a sudden tells you that his wife, and of course the mother of their child just up and leaves, maybe you should ask yourself, does that really sound reasonable? Do you know that person?
No, you know what's funny? I actually have had an experience like that. Where I lived in New York, everybody was talking about how their neighbors just disappeared, and everybody was like, that's fishy.
Yeah.
I can't see them suckers no more. But that's a whole different story. So I'll get back. I have one experience where it was a neighbor. It was like 5 doors down. But all of a sudden, his wife just disappeared. And like everybody was like, where did she go? Where did she go? Where did she go? And nobody really knew. And then one of the nosy neighbors, she actually went and knocked on this guy's door and asked him, berated him about where his wife was.
Oh, good for her.
We got a story back from her, the neighborhood. Got a story back in the rumor mill. People would come over and just sit at your dining room table and, spill the tea over some coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, that actually kind of happened in my neighborhood years and years ago. We didn't get a McGruff situation together. Because that was back in the years of McGruff. Remember, McGruff would be on the TV.
Oh, absolutely. In his brown, light tan trench coat.
Yeah. It never turns into any malice to talk about, I guess. But yeah, that you just reminded me of that. Mm-hmm. She disappeared and everybody was like really up in arms about it for a good month at least. So this is what you're going to tell us about?
I think that neighbors should be a little bit nosy in a situation like that. So McGruff it hard, because if it doesn't...
McGruff says, say something, see something, say something.
That's right. Now, today's story was brought to us by Angela Hoefler. So thank you, Angela. This episode contains descriptions of real events, including themes of domestic conflict, disappearance, and violence. This story is told with respect for the victim, her family, and all those affected. Listener discretion is advised. Now, let's get into it. This is Season 9, Episode 15, The Vanishing of Khristine Smith, Disappearance and Suspicion. Some stories begin in silence, not the sharp silence of a gunshot echoing down a hallway, but the soft, hollow quiet that follows when someone just doesn't come home. In that quiet, the mind starts building explanations, the reasonable ones first, then the darker ones we don't dare speak aloud. In Kalamazoo, Michigan, in the fall of 1994, that silence settled over a small suburban street. By morning, it would spread through the neighborhood like a fog. Khristine Smith was 27 years old. She was a young mother with a kind face and an even temper. Neighbors remember her as the type to wave from the driveway even when she was in a rush. The kind of mother who never missed a school play or a field trip. Her husband, Russ Smith, was a former police officer turned auto service manager at the local Sears. To the outside world, they were ordinary, stable, comfortable. But as we so often learn, ordinary doesn't mean peaceful. It was September 28th, a Wednesday night. Russ told the neighbors that Khristine had packed a bag and left him, just walked right out the door after another argument. He said she'd fallen for another man and run away. He even had a note, handwritten, folded neatly, supposedly from her, explaining why she couldn't stay. But something about the whole thing just didn't sit right.
Oh no, not a note. Obviously not in her handwriting. That was his downfall, I believe. The note is actually the clincher.
Right. You dumbass. And it's like, why are you showing the neighbors the note? That's a flag. Hello.
Yeah. Flag on the play. Flag on the play.
Yeah. Looky here. Look what she wrote me. What?
Here's the proof. See, believe me now?
Yeah, right? It's true.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, the neighbors noticed she'd left behind her car, her jewelry, and most telling of all, her daughter. Debbie and Tim Rose lived next door. They were friends, the kind of neighbors who shared coffee and tools and gossip about yard projects.
Yeah, and I'm sure gossip between the ladies about their husbands as well, because that's per usual. So if there was anything fishy or hinky, I'm sure, maybe she didn't tell her the bad stuff if there was bad stuff. I'm a woman, and I know that if I'm friendly with another woman, we're dishing everything. We're dishing what it's like in the bedroom. We're dishing what it's like in the kitchen. We're dishing what it's like everywhere. Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm sure this neighbor is the key to suspicion.
Right. You got to have somebody to talk to.
Exactly.
Now, when Russ showed them that note, Debbie felt a chill run through her. Khristine, she told the police later, was a mother who would never leave her little girl behind. Not for a day, not for anyone. Two days later, Tim Rose saw Russ back a trailer into his garage. He didn't even own a boat, and yet he spent hours in there with the door shut. Something metal scraped the concrete, a hammer, a drill. He couldn't see, but he could hear. Tim told his wife he was sure their neighbor was hiding something, maybe someone. Debbie laughed it off at first, called it a bad TV plot, but every night the house next door stayed dark and the car in the driveway never moved. When days became weeks, someone, not Russ, but another neighbor, finally called the police to report Khristine missing. Detective Randy Dyloff caught the case. At first, he believed the same story everyone else had been fed. A domestic fight. A woman who walked away. Well, he'd seen it before, but as soon as he sat across from Russ Smith, something in the man's calm just didn't add up. Russ refused to let Dyloff speak to his daughter alone. He refused a search of the house. And when the detective came back a second time, Russ was already dating again. Bars, clubs, classified ads. He'd even posted an ad saying he was, quote, looking to make people smile. It was barely a month since his wife had vanished. Behind the closed doors of the Smith house, Detective Dyloff would eventually learn things that had turned his stomach. Children's clothes rearranged in strange places, a bedroom that didn't feel like a child's anymore. Enough to call in Child Protective Services. Enough for Candace, just 7 years old, to be placed in foster care. Only then could investigators speak to her alone.
Wait, but why did she go into foster care? Was he not taking care of her?
There was some, and I'll use your word, hinky stuff going on, like the child is now sleeping in his bed.
Oh.
Yeah, not good.
No. Not good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Candace told the counselor what her father had said, that Mommy and Daddy had fought and Mommy left. But she also told them something else, something she shouldn't have had to see. That her father told her not to go into the upstairs bathroom, and that when she did, there was blood in the sink. But without a body, Dyloff had nothing to charge, but he kept the file on his desk, a cold stack of paper that smelled like bleach and lies. Before Christmas of 1994, a friend of Russ Smith called the police. He said Russ had remodeled his upstairs bathroom just days after Khristine disappeared. He ripped out the tub, the tiles, everything. Told him he'd thrown something in anger, had broken the shower, and needed to fix it. The friend didn't believe him, and neither did Dyloff. A warrant followed. The search turned up no body, no gun, no obvious blood. But the detective found something else. Boxes of brand new Sears merchandise, such as radios, snow blowers, and tools. So, embezzlement charges came easier than murder charges, and that's what stuck. Russ spent a few days in jail for theft, long enough for Dyloff to see how the man handled pressure. And what he saw was control. Cold, methodical control. Months later, while being transferred on those embezzlement charges, Russ made a mistake. In a recorded conversation with Detective Dyloff, he came dangerously close to admitting what he'd done. But without a proper Miranda warning, the tape would never hold up in court. Dyloff called it his worst Christmas, having a confession he could never use. By spring, Russ Smith was a free man again, a widower without a death certificate, a father without a child. He left Michigan behind and started over, but the case didn't leave him. Not the police, not the neighbors who still looked at that empty house and saw a ghost in the bathroom mirror. Sometimes the truth doesn't stay buried. It waits. In a wall, in a lake, in the space between two lies told too many times. For 4 years, Detective Dyloff's case file sat in storage. A cold case with no body, no weapon, and no hope. Until 1998, when a new team of investigators opened it again. What they found would finally make the silence break. For 4 years after Khristine Smith disappeared, the case that had once gone cold was warming up again. Not with new evidence, not yet, but with persistence. In 1998, Kalamazoo's cold case unit reopened the file. They believed what most people on that street already knew, that Russ Smith had killed his wife. Dan Weston led the team. He was calm, the kind of detective who measured his words like chess moves. He told his unit something simple. People can't carry a secret like this forever. The challenge was getting Russ to set it down. At first, they looked at the obvious. Khristine hadn't taken her car, her wallet, her jewelry, even her paycheck, all still at home. The so-called goodbye letter was a fake. A handwriting expert said it was copied from a note she'd written years earlier. Everything about the story was paper thin. The detectives played the old tape, the one from 1995, when Russ had come so close to confessing. They played it for his old girlfriends, for friends, and for family. One ex, a woman named Judy, flinched halfway through and told them what he'd said years ago. That Chris had pulled a gun on him during an argument, that he wrestled it away and shot her. It wasn't much, but it was something. And it matched what little they had already suspected, that the argument in that bathroom had turned fatal. The cold case team tore that bathroom apart again. Behind new drywall and tile, they found bloodstains, old, partial, degraded, too faint for DNA testing of the time. Still, it was proof that something violent had happened there. They went to the press, leaking the discovery on purpose. "We found new evidence," the headlines read. It wasn't exactly true, but bluffing sometimes shakes the truth loose. Russ's parents were called in, then his daughter Candace. Detectives told them they believed Russ had killed Chris. They asked for help convincing him to tell the truth. Everyone refused to listen to the tape, everyone except his father. Late one October night, the elder Smith called his son in Florida. He said he'd heard the tape. He said detectives were coming, and for the first time in 4 years, well, Russ sounded tired. He told his father he understood, that maybe it was time. December 1998. The investigators found Russ working at a job down south. They followed him to the post office where he opened a letter, a newspaper clipping about the case. The coincidence was eerie. As he stepped outside, Detective Weston was there waiting. Weston shook his hand and introduced himself, but Russ, he didn't flinch. He just said quietly, "I know." He agreed to talk. They went back to his house and sat in the living room. Hours passed. Weston worked slowly, step by step. Russ's words began to stumble, his voice thinner with each question. Finally, he said, "It's too hard to say the words." Weston leaned forward and whispered, "Say them anyway." And he did. Russ said the argument started that morning after their daughter left for school. Chris wanted to leave. He told her she could go, but she wasn't taking Candace. She turned away, said she hated him, and spit in his face. He walked out of the room, got his gun, came back, and shot her twice. He didn't cry. He didn't tremble. He just talked. Afterward, he said he put her in a storage barrel, loaded it into his truck, and drove Candace to his parents' house in Ohio. Then he drove alone to Lake Erie, borrowed a friend's boat, and dropped the barrel 9 miles out. The water took her, and with her, almost every piece of evidence. The following spring, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. As part of that plea, he agreed to help find her body. So detectives took him back to Lake Erie. He pointed to a spot on the horizon and said, "There." They searched all day, but the lake gave up nothing. Russ Smith was sentenced to 35 to 70 years in prison. His earliest possible release date is May 2027, and he's still serving his time in Ionia. In his letter to the judge, he said he wasn't a violent man, that he'd been pushed past his limits, that he was sorry, but the investigators never believed him. They said Chris had never been unfaithful, only unhappy, and that Russ's real motive was control over his wife, his story, and the silence that followed. The lake has never given her back. Somewhere beneath its surface, they say, an old buoy still marks the spot. A makeshift grave for a woman who never got one. Candace grew up with her grandparents, far from the house where her mother vanished. When her father was sent away, she told them she wasn't angry, that she still loved him. Maybe she was too young to understand the full weight of what happened. Maybe she understood it all too well. Grief can live in silence for years. Sometimes it hides in the corners of a home. Sometimes in the sound of water moving just out of sight. The truth came too late for Khristine Smith and too soon for her daughter. Tonight, we leave this story where the police left it, with a file marked closed, a confession without a body, and a buoy that rocks endlessly on Lake Erie, the only marker for a life that should have gone on.
I just want to say that that's really super sad for her family. I mean, this little girl really has nothing left of her mother.
Now, not all graves are marked in stone. Some are water, some are memory, and some are the silence that lingers in the space between truth and justice. For Khristine Smith, the lake became her resting place. For Candace, it became the sound of everything she lost. We thank you for listening to our episode today. As always, thank you so much to all of our listeners. And we will see you all back on Wednesday for Round Robin. So have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.